Thank you for taking the time to watch this episode of Life Support. If you enjoy the content, we would ask that you like it, hit subscribe, and share it with your friends. Hey, it's so great to have you on Life Support. This is a program that deals with stories of redemption. It talks about how God is working in the lives of folks that maybe normally you wouldn't be in contact with or be familiar with. So I hope you are blessed. I hope you are encouraged. And my guest today, who's back to help us understand what's going on in prisons and what God is doing there, is Joe Pryor, who's the CEO of Crossroads Prison Ministries. And Joe, thanks a lot for coming back. Appreciate it so much.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you having me.
Tell me again what Crossroads does. What is your ministry to prisoners?
Crossroads Prison Ministries is a Bible correspondence ministry that's been around for 40 years now. We have one simple thing that we do. We mail Bible lessons into prisons to what we call our students. They work through the lesson. They mail it back to us here in our office in Grand Rapids. We forward it to one of our 3,000 volunteer mentors who, from their kitchen table, they fill out the complete or respond to the answers in the lesson that the student provided. Then they write an encouraging letter, which is really kind of the hallmark of our ministry. Then they mail it back to the student. And while they're doing that, the students working on the next lesson. And we have about 10, 12 years worth of lessons. We have many students who have been with us that long, or if not longer. And that's what we do. We're a Bible correspondence ministry where people can minister to people in prison from the comfort of their home.
You shared with us last time that one of the big challenges that you're facing is the new security that's going on in institutions because of how drugs are being trafficked into institutions. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. And I need to say from the outset that I get it. I understand from the prison standpoint. After my Federal Bureau of Prisons chaplaincy career, I had a period of time where I was an assistant warden and a warden of a prison, of a couple of prisons. And the level of drugs that are coming into prisons in new and innovative and very sad ways is not something that has been around for a long, long time. People are sending drugs in on the glue on envelopes and the glue on stamps. They're able to soak drugs into paper and then send it into prison, and it's very difficult to detect. So I get it. I totally get it. When I talk to correctional leaders around the country, I understand their problem. And if I were a warden, I would figure out every way I could to keep the drugs out of prison myself. So we work very, very hard to make sure that our process is safe and secure. The challenge we have, though, is that because of these drugs coming in, prisons have come up with ways to restrict the mail, restrict regular mail, as like what you get in your mailbox. They're doing a couple of things. They're using third-party scanning services. So if you mail a letter to a prisoner, you don't mail it to the prison, you mail it to this third-party address. They scan it and either mail or hand deliver the scanned, sanitized copy and destroy the original, so that there's a guarantee that there's no drugs, on those documents. Or the newest thing is they'll scan the document, the letter, and then deliver it electronically to a tablet that's in prison, that's in the prisoner's hands. Currently, there's, it depends on who you ask, anywhere from 1 million to 1.5 million tablets in prisons and jails around the country. And so if you get something delivered to you on a tablet, number one, you don't have to worry about your mailroom staff handling anything. And in reality, it's safe and secure. There's no drugs in it for sure. For a correspondence Bible ministry like ours, that presents direct challenges to us. Our lessons come in booklets. So booklets are very difficult to scan. They come out, the pagination is wrong, come out kind of wonky. and almost impossible to complete. So we're in the process of reformatting all of our lessons to good old 8.5 by 11 format so that they can be scanned. But if they're delivered on tablets, the tablets are not interactive.
Mm-hmm.
So they could receive the lesson, but they couldn't complete the lesson. So that in and of itself shoots us right in the head, and it would completely block us from doing ministry in a state system. So the tablets are kind of a blessing and a curse for us in a ministry like ours. They're a blessing in the sense that working with several partners and developing some content on our own, including Five Stones Media. We've put the videos that they have on our site. We have, since October, well over 1 million views of people in prison looking at content, and that familiarizes them with Crossroads so that they then know who we are, and we encourage them to enroll. But the male challenges are a very, very real and present problem for us right now.
Yeah, well, we'll get some people praying about that, and that's really important, or that God will give you ways that you can begin to go in a different direction to help them complete their lessons. But I can understand, given our family situation where we have, a perpetrator in jail for, killing our son, we have been in contact with that person, and the level of security just to contact a prisoner is I don't think many people really understand that. Now, our perpetrator is in a British Columbia prison, and they have a wonderful system, but when it pops up in your email that you have a message or something, then you get to go through these many steps to finally get to where you want to go. And I always freeze up in terror because I know I've forgotten either a question or a security something, but so I can understand, like you said, that it has to be that way, but God also needs to pave a way for you to be able to do this very important and really not complicated ministry. I mean, you've got it down, you know how to do it, and I'm sure that God will provide a way for you. What are these prisoners like, Joe, that you're ministering to?
They're a variety of people. I think a lot of them are people who at some point in their life had a faith or a church background. Maybe they grew up in church, and now this is their life situation. Being in prison, being incarcerated has turned them back to God, and we provide a lifeline. We provide not only a solid Bible study series, but we provide a real connection with a real person who cares on the outside. So I think there are a lot of people like that have returned to their faith. I also think there's a lot of people who have been stripped of everything, all their dignity, their belongings, their careers, their families, their friends, and now they realize I've got to do something, and they begin to search, they begin to seek, and they may seek in all the wrong areas, and I've seen that happen as well. But they also oftentimes, turn to God and seek salvation through our Savior, and in doing so, gravitate toward a Bible study like ours and other prison ministries as well. The uniqueness of ours is that personal contact with the mentor, and how those Christ-centered relationships are developed.
Mm-hmm. I think the perception most people have about prisoners is that they're, the hardcore, look out, they're going to hurt you if you walk in near them. And, but what you're describing is that there's maybe a few of those, but many of the prisoners that you work with are just normal people who made a mistake and have lost a lot, right? I mean, their lives have been turned over.
Yeah, I agree. One of the places I worked was the United States Penitentiary in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, and it's a high security penitentiary. And at the time I was there, had a couple of thousand people incarcerated there. And to give you the idea of the faith of people in prison, the Christian guys came to me one day and they said, "Hey, chaplain, we want you to pray for Jesse. We're working on him." And that's exactly the words they used. We're working on him. I said, "Absolutely, I'll pray for you." Jesse was a Satanist high priest who was incarcerated there and had done horrible, horrible things in his criminal history. I talked to Jesse. He came up to me in my office. We talked for a couple of hours, and he said to me, and I talked about faith and about God's grace and God's forgiveness being offered to all of us. And his comment was, "You don't understand. The things I've done to people would make you physically sick." And he said, "I don't deserve the grace you're describing." And that was my opening,
Yep.
To tell him that none of us deserve the grace that God provides. It's a gift. I had the privilege of baptizing him, of leading
Wow.
him to Christ and baptizing him, and seeing the change in a person who, when he walked into my office the first time and requested a satanic Bible, which I did not provide, by the way, the temperature in the room dropped. The level of coldness and evil that he exuded was palpable. For him to come up out of those baptismal waters and fellowship with the Christian guys, what convinced me that God can reach anyone. God can reach the coldest of hearts. And that's what prison ministry is all about. Believing that every single person can change, not looking at people like people in the world do and give up on them.
Yeah.
Everybody can be changed by the presence of Christ.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm kind of surprised you just didn't reach into your bag and grab a satanic Bible, Joe. You don't carry one of those around with you, apparently. No, my wife and I had a chance to speak at a prison here in Minnesota, and we were able to share our story, and it was really about victim reconciliation and how to get right with the victim if there's a way to do that. And wow, these men lined up and they were carrying that guilt and shame around with them. And they didn't know what to do with that because they genuinely were hurting over what they had done to certain people. And just this opening of, well, you mean I can maybe make this right, or I can at least express, I'm sorry, that kind of thing. So I can imagine that that's something that is both really hard for you to deal with, but also gives you those openings to say, hey, listen, you don't have to carry this around forever, right?
Well, it's the hope of Christ.
Yeah.
And what chaplains in prison, and I love chaplains in prisons. I'm involved with the Correctional Ministries and Chaplains Association out of Wheaton College in Chicago as well. I just love chaplains and the work that they do, and they're unsung heroes. It used to be, and I think it's kind of died down some. It used to be, some people would say, "Well, you're a chaplain because you couldn't make it in the church."
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the opposite is true oftentimes.
Yeah.
They're a chaplain because they're really special, unique, courageous people who deal with, whether you're a hospital chaplain or a prison or a jail chaplain, whatever it may be, you deal with people in crisis and in trauma. I've just seen some remarkable things happen in prisons where the goal is to just bring a thread of hope. And one of the hardest things to do is to counsel someone who has lost all hope, and to instill in them some ray of hope. And almost always, if they don't have family, they don't have friends in prison, that ray of hope that never fails is a relationship with Christ. And if you can instill that in their hearts, plant that seed, then I've seen real lives change.
Yeah, I was counseling a couple in our church not too long ago who were getting married, and they had both come out of a prison background. They'd both been in prison, and they were just talking about how lonely it is because you really don't have friends that you can trust. You're really on your own. You have to, it's all about protecting yourself from everything.
Mhm.
And so for you to come and say, hey, wait a minute, you don't have to, there is a friend that's closer than a brother.
Right. Yeah.
That has to make a real difference when they hear that good news for the first time.
Yeah, it does. It's not something that I can instill in somebody, but when we are faithful to Christ and we share that message of hope, the Holy Spirit takes hold and takes root and begins to speak to that person and to bring unexplainable peace and comfort to them as they lay in their bunk at night or wake up in the morning. And that's a part of why we're in the tablet industry, tablet ministry as well, is we really want to have a presence on the tablets where when somebody's laying in their bunk at night or when they wake up in the morning, they can tune into Christian programming that we provide and that others provide, that Five Stones Media now provides.
Yeah.
They can tune into something that's hopeful, that's encouraging, that displays and shows the love of Christ, and it helps them either start their day or end their day with some ray of hope. The beauty of that is with so many tablets in prisons, if you can afford to do it, and again, there's the finance piece again, but you can afford to do it and to keep adding content, you can really have an impact in tens of thousands of people's lives that are incarcerated.
Yeah, the tablets are interesting. I know Five Stone uh, has placed on the tablets, and what we're talking about is just something that a prisoner has access to with no outside internet or anything. This is the content they have, right? That this is what they're watching.
Correct.
I know that with the story of John Turnipseed, Five Stones had a massive amount of downloads, and so um, that's fantastic. But where do you see technology? You've already described it's hard because of envelope scanning and so forth, because of drugs that are being soaked into paper and that kind of thing. How important is technology going to be for you in the future, and where is this all going as you look 5, 10 years down the road, and as our culture changes and as our country changes, and I'm sure that will affect the people that you're trying to minister to.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's the wave of the future. It's how long it will take. I don't know. I think there are a lot of things that still can't be done on the tablets, like our program,
Yep.
that will have to be available and perfected. Um, those are the types of things that I'm being told by people that are experts in industry that we're a couple of years out from that. Um, a part of the challenge is that the tablet providers are for-profit businesses, and I get that. I understand they have to make money to stay in business, or people like us won't have a way to get things on in front of people. But they have to do what they need to do to make money. But that also limits our presence on the tablets as well because they have to use all that time and space. So all that to say, they all want to do this. It's just the technology has to catch up,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and the finances have to be right for ministries like ours, like Steve's at Five Stones, so that it's affordable.
Yeah.
We're a fairly decent sized nonprofit with a broad reach around the world. But when I'm being told that it's going to take a couple of $100,000 to get to where we need to be, that's a heavy lift. Now, all that being said, there are people who are working with us in partnership to do some pilots. My former employer, after I left the Bureau, Core Civic, we're getting ready to do a pilot in their facility in Tennessee. There's another tablet provider called Origin, and we're working with them to do a pilot in one of their facilities. So we keep pushing it along so that we can stay ahead of the curve.
That's good. All right. So, but still, the key to your ministry are the mentors, the ones who correspond with your students. So,
Right.
how does someone that's listening right now, hey, I might be interested in that? How do they get a hold of Crossroads?
Sure. You can find us through our website. There's a mentor section of our website. If you just go to our website at www.cpministries.org, cpministries.org, or you can find us on Facebook. Just search for Crossroads Prison Ministries on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, and it'll have our ways to contact us, or you can email me directly and I'll pass you along to the right person. And I'm at jpryor@cpministries.org. We will respond to you. We have a great team of people here who care deeply about this ministry and provide all the support we need. And if there are pastors out there listening and you want your church involved, we can be your prison ministry. And we have a director of church engagement who will be happy to sit down and talk with you and with interested people in your church.
And as for prayer, last time you were very upfront. You said we need funding. I think I've said that to my church a few times in the last couple of years. The great thing about where our economy is that you can talk like this to people now, and they go, "Oh yeah, I understand."
Right.
Because like just like I'm having a hard time making my budget, I can understand how you're having a hard time making your budget. So you can just pretty much talk to them about that. But that is a real concern for you, isn't it?
It is. Our board has challenged us to go from roughly 30,000 enrollments a year to 70,000 in 5 years. That's going to be an exponential growth for us. But even just the snapshot right now, our postage budget alone is close to $500,000. Our cost to send Bibles to anyone who requests one, which we send about 10 to 12,000 Bibles a year, is anywhere from $70,000 to $75,000 a year. And that doesn't even include, we have staff that we pay to do all of this, and other costs related to, what I do to promote the ministry. So it's it's a real need that we have. If everybody would just do their part, I understand what you're saying as well, the difficulty in making your budget. But if every church in our 1,400 churches that have at least one mentor were to give less than $100 a month, it would tip scales for us.
Yeah, and God isn't hindered by our current economic status, and that's always hopeful and wonderful. And his people are incredibly generous too. And if you lay the need in front of them, and they prayerfully respond many times above and beyond what you would expect. So give me the website address one more time.
Sure, www.cpministries.org, www.cpministries.org.
Awesome. Joe, it's so good to meet you. Thank you for stopping by and sharing your ministry. I wish you all the best, and we'll be praying for you. And I know many people who are listening right now will certainly be in prayer for you as well.